Hello there, this is Agri Talk right here on KTN Farmers TV, and today we are in Karibaribi in Kiambu County. Today we'll be looking at how you as a farmer can grow capsicum inside the greenhouse and get a better yield at the end of the day. My name is Kelvin Nyakundi. Let's get right into it and see how you can do this. Tell us about your farm.
Okay, we're growing capsicum in this farm, yellow and red capsicum. The varieties we're growing are Passarella for the red and Ilanga for the yellow. We chose these varieties because they were highly recommended by agronomists and other farmers.
What prompted you to start this?
Okay, my husband and I both have a passion for agriculture. Even in our home garden at the estate where we live, we've been growing vegetables, our own skuma, even some passion fruit plants and things like that. So it was like passion to portfolio. We're now like, let's take our passion into a business. So we did a lot of research about choosing the crop, and we saw that there seems to be a supply gap for yellow and red capsicum. So that's how we settled on them.
All right. So when we come to the yellow and red,
Yes.
you've told us their names. So which one is more easy to take care of?
They're the same. Actually, the difficulty comes between varieties, as in the companies that are supplying you, the seed companies. The Passarella and Ilanga are beneficial because they are resistant to some diseases. So it's easier to grow them and to take care of them. There's some other varieties that are not so resistant, and you grow them and then you will struggle maybe with the tobacco mosaic virus, and then it will be more difficult for you to make a profit. Also, the yellow, the Ilanga and the Passarella are also very high yielding. When you compare with other varieties, they are among the top yielders in terms of production. And if you follow the right nutrition and pest control programs, you should get at least 3 kgs per plant in the entire growing season. And if you're growing them in a greenhouse, you should be able to harvest for 8 months or more.
All right. Okay, so now let's get into the process. You've prepared your garden. So explain to us the planting process.
I think I'll take you back, Kevin, to before we actually put the seed. The first thing is you have to choose, you have to test the land, the soil in the land that you've chosen. Sometimes you may do a soil test and you may realize that that soil is not suitable for growing capsicum. In that event, then you can't start the project. You'll have to choose another piece of land. Or the test may show that there's some diseases and some pests and some nutrient deficiency that you must correct before you start the planting. So you will test your water supply, whether it's a borehole or it's a dam. You test the water source, and you also test the soil that you've chosen on the land you've chosen. If after having those test results, you now ask an agronomist to look at them and to advise you on the way forward. If he says that the land is suitable, he may also want you to correct the pH, because capsicum have a particular pH range that is comfortable for them. Or there may be some diseases and pests that you have to get rid of. So he will advise you what to do. For us on this farm, we didn't have any pests or diseases that were picked up in the analysis, but they did say that our pH is too low. So we were advised to put agricultural lime, which we broadcasted and we incorporated into the soil. We were also advised on the manure to put. We were told to put goat manure, and we were told the quantities to put. So it is very important that you get the right advice and start the plant well. Just like what they say about a growing child, that they will say that the first 60 months of a child will determine the way the child grows for the rest of their life.
Yes.
The general health, their susceptibility to diseases and things like that, even their learning ability. It's the same with a plant. It needs to start off well so that it is established and you get a good crop that is firm and will produce a good yield.
And now, even as we still go on with the conversation, for example, you test your soil, and then you find, the way you said, the pH is too low or too high. What if you don't have any other alternative of maybe using whatever you used in order to put it into the right stable condition that it needs to be? As a farmer who maybe cannot get access to such kinds of maybe can we say kinds of things that can make the soil balanced.
Yes.
What else can they use? Can they use organic manure? Can they use something to in order to correct the soil?
Okay, the agronomist will guide, and there are some natural substances that are found already on a normal farm that may be able to be used. Manure is one of them. They may talk about ash, wood ash. They will advise you based on what the challenge is. But I always advise other farmers that you'd rather not start. Don't cut corners and then say, I am not going to correct the soil, because the plant, if the pH hasn't been corrected, the plant will not take up any nutrients. So you will then be losing money along the way, feeding it excessively, and it's not growing. So it is very important to follow all the steps religiously.
All right. And now, let's talk about the seed. When you're choosing the seed, what do you look at?
Okay. We look at resistance to disease. We look at the yield, the records about its yield. We also inquire from other farmers, their experience with that crop. We visit farms and we see what others are using. So you will see that there will be a general consensus. If you are to ask capsicum farmers, maybe 10 out of the 10 that you ask, 8 of them will tell you Passarella and Ilanga. So that's how we selected it. It was based on that confidence. Yeah.
And now let's move to land preparation. What do you need to do in order to make it now ready for the planting?
So besides the correction of the pH and the manure that you put in, you also need to prepare beds, and you need to have the correct spacing. So you have your drip lines. We were advised and we researched about this, and we settled on a spacing of 45 centimeters between each plant, and then 45 centimeters between the rows. And we have 2 rows per bed. That spacing has a great impact on the yields that you will get, surprisingly. Because if the plant doesn't have enough space, it will not be able to grow out the branches that it needs to have. Actually, if you don't give it enough space, some of the plants will be in shade, the other plants will shade the others, and even your sprayings will not be so effective when you are now trying to spray nutrients or pesticides or fungicides, because some of the leaves will be hidden. I just want to explain a bit about the planting.
Okay.
So when you take your seed to a propagation house, that would be the recommended way to go about it. You can make your own seedlings from the seed, but you probably won't have the facilities to do it correctly. The seed propagation houses, they have conditions that are optimum for the growth of seeds. So they will take the seeds and then they will probably tell you in 35 days time, please come and collect your seedlings. When you have your seedlings, at planting, you will use a high phosphorus fertilizer for planting. This is so that it encourages the growth of the roots. So as you're planting, you place some maybe DAP or another high phosphorus fertilizer into the hole. You mix that fertilizer, and then you plant your seedling. There are other things that we've done as well to encourage the growth of the plant. We've used a product called Root Guard, which has a product that protects from nematodes, and it also stimulates the development of the root. Like I've said, if you don't start off well, you will reduce your chances of success. So we start with the good planting, and then we engaged an agronomist, and this is very important. You need to engage an agronomist to give you a program, a nutrition and pest and disease control program. So that program now is what you will follow to do weekly sprays, base of fertilizer application, preventive sprays, and the nutrition, so that at the end of the day, you are taking care of your plant and feeding it the way it's supposed to be fed throughout its growth cycle. And this fertilizer, this spraying fertilizer program changes as the plant grows. Just like a child, when a child is young, you feed it food that is appropriate for it. You know, you're not going to feed it ugali when it is 2 months old. So the program starts with a certain type, simple nutrients, and then as the plant grows, it's now able to take more complex nutrients. Yeah, so that is what you need to do. And then when the plant is now about 3 weeks old, you start trellising it, because the plant will no longer be able to stand on its own. It will start falling. So this is the trellising that we're talking about, and the support that you need to put in place, because the plant will not be able to keep growing well without support. And this trellising, there's a technique to it. You need to learn how to do it well so that you don't harm the plant. If you are just to tie it without knowledge, you may end up strangling the plant, causing wounds, and those wounds will make the plant more susceptible to disease. So it is a very deliberate kind of technique that one must learn.
What if you don't use it and leave the plant to just grow without putting this trellising that you've put?
So when the plant is about 3 weeks old, you will need to trellis it. So this is about supporting the plant with strings and also the support of the weight with the various poles that you will need to put in place. The reason for this is that if you don't trellis the plant and support it, it will just fall over, and you will not be able to have a meaningful yield from it. So, and the trellising is a technique. You need to learn how to do it properly, because you do not want to bruise the plant, because a bruised plant is susceptible to diseases. So you need to learn how to do it so that you don't strangle the plant and make it difficult then to grow. So there's a technique with that, and even the branches that you decide to keep on each plant, each branch must have its own string.
And for example, in a day, how much water does the plant need?
Okay. The thing is, just like a human being, the plant has got a particular needs for nutrients and for water. And just like the way a human being will show signs that they need water, maybe you feel thirsty, a plant will communicate to you. You need to understand how it's communicating to you. You need to be able to see how it is. Are the leaves spread out? Is it looking tired? Is the soil around it crumbly, or is it wet? So you need to be able to give it just the right amount of water by looking at the signs and looking at how much water it may be requiring. So if it's hot, you will give it more water, because even a human being, when it's hot, you may drink water more frequently. But when it's in winter and it's cold, you're unlikely to drink a lot of water. You may opt for tea. So you can't say now when you're watering 4 times a day during the hot season, then during the cold season you also want to water 4 times a day. It will be too much because there's no evaporation, so there's less transpiration of the moisture from the plants. So it is about understanding and learning to read your plant. So even the people on the ground, my husband and the workers, they will always be analyzing and seeing what the plant needs. So some days it's twice a day, some days it's 3 times a day, depending on the needs of the plant.
What shows you that the plant now is ready for harvesting?
Okay, for red and yellow capsicum is easy because they will change color. They will change to yellow or to red. As they are growing already, when you see the color starting to change, you're already aligning yourself with the market, already talking to the buyers, so that by the time the plant is now ready to start the harvesting season, you know where you're going to take your crop. So they will accept maybe 75% to fully ripe. That may be the requirement of a supplier. Other suppliers may say, we don't want more than 75% ripe because we want to have longer to sell the product.
What are some of the pests and diseases that affect capsicum?
Okay, capsicum is in the same family as tomatoes, so it tends to have the same kind of challenges in terms of pests and diseases. Some of them, just to give you an example, is nematodes can disturb a lot. Those are worms that I found in the soil. There's white flies, there's spider mites, there's powdery mildew. It's a disease. It's that disease has devastated a lot of capsicum farmers. There's downy mildew, which is another disease. So we're talking about pests, diseases, and fungal infections, which are part of the diseases. So what we do, why this farm is so clean, is that we employ good farming practices and integrated pest management. What that is about is that even keeping the plant free from weeds is part of our strategy to address or to keep diseases away. If you have lots of weeds, those weeds are going to attract some pests and diseases, and then those pests and diseases are going to affect your plant. So we keep the beds very clean. And then the benefit of the greenhouse is that it allows us to protect the plants from the weather, from the rain and from pests that may come in. So most of that is done by the structure of the greenhouse. It is controlling the weather to some aspects. The plants are not subjected to a lot of cold and or too much heat, because we then use ventilation to open up. We also use traps that you can see. Those traps are attracting the pests, and then when they attract, that paper is sticky. So they will be attracted by the color and the aroma coming from those stickers, and then they will stick there and stay away from the plant. So that is part of our integrated pest management system. And the reason we use it is because we ourselves are also consuming our capsicum. We do not want to grow capsicum that are high in pesticides. We know the link of those pesticides to cancer and other diseases, so we wouldn't want to supply the market with things like that. Also, the integrated pest management system helps to reduce the cost of production, because if you are preventing, then you don't need to buy a lot of chemicals to spray, because you're using preventive methods. So not only are you reducing your costs, but you're also producing healthier crops. And even your yields are also increased, because a plant that is free from diseases is going to produce more. It's just like a person. You can't expect a person who's not well to be productive. So that is the same with our plants.
As I was coming in, I went through a small trough where I placed my feet in, and it has sanitizer. Explain to us the importance of this in a greenhouse.
The thing is, humans, the people working in or coming to this greenhouse, can contaminate the plants. You may be coming from another farm where there's powdery mildew, and you may bring it here. So we do restrict access to this greenhouse. We don't normally allow visitors in. Only the people who usually work in here are the ones who are here, because we're trying to protect these babies of ours. So that liquid is water with detergent, which will sanitize your feet so that they're not bringing in any pest that you may be carrying with your shoes. You wouldn't think it, but you can easily carry pests from outside or from somewhere else with your feet. Yes.
Do you also maybe, can I say, screen it in a way so that you see if it has microorganisms that can affect the plants?
Yeah. The thing is, the quality, we use goat manure for our greenhouse. The reason we use the goat manure is that it slowly releases its nutrients better in a slower way than cow manure. Okay, and then also the source of this goat manure, we're very careful where we get it from. We want to understand the farm where we're getting the fertilizer, the manure from, and we want to understand how they're feeding their goats. So we have a particular source who we've vetted, and we are aware of how well they do the feeding of their goats. Yes.
So in this greenhouse, how regular do you harvest? For example, in one season, how long can you harvest the capsicum?
Right now, these plants are 3 months old. 2,000 of them are now at the stage of harvest. We are now getting 600 kgs a week from the 2,000 plants. And we will be harvesting for close to a year. So at least 9 months or more you can harvest, because it is passerella and it is being grown in a greenhouse. So that also has influenced our choice of the variety. So if you maintain the plant well and feed it accordingly, you should be able to get those kind of harvest.
All right, then we are going for a short break. We'll be right back with more. Welcome back. Today we are talking about capsicum farming, and we have Charity who is going to be explaining more about what you need to do as a farmer. And the difference between capsicum grown in a greenhouse and the ones that are grown on open field. What are some of the differences?
When there's a huge difference. When you try to, actually, I don't know of anyone who will take the chance of growing yellow and red capsicum outside. I think it would not be so profitable. Green capsicum, yes, because of the price of that green capsicum, it becomes, maybe it's not so economical to put a structure like this and then you grow green capsicum. So they're usually grown outside. But the thing is, when you grow the crops within a greenhouse, you're creating a climate that is very conducive for the growth of the plant. You're protecting it. It's almost like it's a child that is in a womb. It's so protected. Once the child is outside, they have to face the elements. So now, if you're growing the plants outside, there can be rain, which will then mean that it's susceptible to diseases, downy mildew, and other diseases. Pests are just attacking it from all angles, and so you have to do more sprays. And then, in the end, because the climate is not so controlled, the nights may be very cold, the days are very hot. In the end, you don't get as good yields. And you won't be able to keep that plant harvesting for such a long time. It will be much shorter, maybe 6 months instead of 9 months. Yeah.
And after you have harvested, how is the market for capsicum when it comes to selling and getting to the market?
Okay, what I've always been saying to farmers is that farmers are always afraid of the market. But I think the challenge we have as farmers is that we do not know. We do not have enough information about where the market is. The people who have the market, who want the crop, they don't advertise. There are pack houses that are packing capsicum for export, like AAA growers and others. But if you don't know about it, you may never know that there's that market. When we started, people were telling us, no one eats red and yellow. Who are you going to sell it to? It's only the green that is sold. But now we've realized that the market is very big. There's a huge market with packers for export, the local market. What you need to only concentrate on is producing a quality crop. Quality crop, a firm fruit, a good size, and it has no blemishes, then I don't think you'll struggle with the market. What usually happens is that farmers are so busy worried about the market, and then their plant is of substandard quality. The buyers will come and they'll see these small fruits, they've ripened and they're so small. They will look at them and then they'll never return. Then in the end you will be saying that maybe farming is not profitable. There's no market. But have you produced the right quality for the market? That is usually the challenge.
And the red and yellow capsicum, do they go as much as the green ones?
Yes, because like I told you, we're producing 600 kgs a week and our buyers asking for more. So yeah, they may not be the typical vegetable that you see at every market.
Yes.
But there are markets for it. The supermarkets, they have them, they want them. The packing houses want them. So there is a big, big market.
So do you sell to supermarkets or?
Okay, right now we're selling through a buyer who's coming to take at the farm. It's convenient for us and she offers a good price, she's reliable. But we're always looking for newer markets, better prices. So, and we know we have a export quality crop. So we're also engaging the different markets to see which one is the best market. So a farmer must always be willing to put in that work, because the difference that 100 shillings a kg, 120, 140 can make to your profitability is great. So we should always keep striving to get a better crop, better quality crop, so that you can command a better price.
And for example, apart from pests and diseases, what are some of the other challenges that a capsicum farmer goes through?
Okay, I think some of the challenges that we faced in our journey of farming are things like the quality of the workers that we have. You do need the right people on the ground. We've been through maybe 6 people since 2020, because to find a good quality farm hand can be very difficult. The last one was very good at looking after the crop, but he was also selling some of the produce. So yeah, so there are all these challenges like that. And also the challenges we face as farmers is also accessing working capital. You want to expand, or you've tried a crop and maybe it hasn't worked out and you ran out of money before you could make it. It is very difficult to access finance, especially if you don't have any collateral to give. And then another challenge is land is very expensive. If you don't have land to lease it, it's very, very expensive. So now you have to pay rent, and then you also have to produce enough to cover the rent and still make a profit. So those are some of the challenges that we faced. Yeah.
What would be your advice to a farmer who wants to start planting capsicums in a greenhouse?
Okay, it depends what the intention is. If they want to grow some red and yellow capsicum to eat,
Yes.
they can easily do it even in their garden or on their balcony. It's not that hard. But if you want to do it commercially and actually make a living out of it, you need to have the right structure. The advice I would give those farmers is that start small. This greenhouse is 45 meters by 16 meters, but you don't have to start there. Start with the, 8 by 5 meter greenhouse. Start small and ask someone to build it for you and start. So you can start in a way that is not too costly, and then you grow. As you are starting small, you are learning. You learn everything about it. You get agronomical support. You need to find an agronomist who knows what they're doing. A lot of people will say they're agronomists, but they just know a few things. You actually need to interrogate and to look for the evidence that this person knows what they're doing. And then you can start small and learn in a way that if it fails, you won't be now on your knees. Put aside some money that you can afford to lose, and you start small and learn. And then once you've learned, you can now expand to a bigger greenhouse. You can end up with, there's someone I know now who has 17 greenhouses.
Wow.
But they started with one. So there's definitely a great opportunity in farming.
And okay, so you've planted and you've had great plant that has grown into maturity. What is it that you've been doing throughout this time to make it look so good?
Okay, so I've explained about the planting, the high phosphorus fertilizer that we use. Now the plant, if you plant with the high phosphorus fertilizer, you don't add anything else. You just water the plant for the first maybe month or so, 3 weeks to a month or so. You do not give it any other nutrients. This is because the plant is still very young, and you do not want to give a baby very difficult food to eat. So after those a few weeks, we now start feeding the plant. The type of nutrients that we'll give will depend on the stage that the plant is at. At the beginning, we want to encourage growth. We want to encourage the leaves to come up. So we will give a fertilizer which has high nitrogen content. So that is for the first growth stage. So we will do this for about 2-3 months. This fertilizer is not going to be just with nitrogen, but the nitrogen content is higher than the other nutrients. So we usually use an NPK fertilizer, but with higher nitrogen. Now the plant will have grown, and it is now about 2 months old, and we now start seeing flowers. Once we start seeing flowers, we start changing the fertilizers, skewing them towards potassium. So we will now start increasing the quantity of potassium and reducing the percentage of nitrogen in our soil. And then this will now encourage the fruit setting, the flowering. And another thing that we mustn't forget is that we will always put, from the time that the plant is about 2 months old, we will put an calcium rich fertilizer as well. So we ourselves have been putting a blend of a calcium rich fertilizer and a nitrogen rich fertilizer, or a blend of those. We usually do a cocktail for our base of fertilizer. So those fertilizers are applied every 2 weeks. You can do it every 2 weeks or every month, depending on how you're applying. And then you must be guided by your program and by your agronomist. When he's coming to visit, our agronomist comes every 2 weeks. When he's coming to visit, the plant is communicating to him and to us to say, is there any deficiency? If we notice any deficiencies, we're quick to provide a solution. Recently, we noticed that some of our leaves were showing an iron deficiency. There was some paling of the leaves. So we quickly addressed that by putting a mix which has iron. So it's basically making sure you keep up with the communication that you get from your plant and you respond to it accordingly. There are other things that we will put stimulants to encourage flowers. There are biostimulants, there are hormones that you can also add to increase the flowering. So again, that is based also on advice from the agronomist.
All right.
One that we've been using is boomflower, and we've liked the way it has worked with our plants. So another nutrients that we are looking at is boron. That nutrient helps it works with calcium to protect the plant and to help it to grow in a good way. So those are some of the nutrients that we give the plant.
Oh, all right. So let us look at the greenhouse is big enough. So what are some of the other activities that you do in order to make sure that it's well taken care of?
Okay, the thing is, daily there are a lot of activities going on inside the greenhouse. The first thing that we do when we come into the greenhouse is scouting. Scouting is part of the integrated pest management system. And basically it is to look at the plant keenly and identify any signs of pests or diseases before they spread. If you do your scouting well, you also limit the chemicals that you use in your greenhouse, because you may only need to spray a small part, and you may need just to do a small intervention there before all your plants are affected. So in the morning there will be scouting where the leaves are looked at, the bottom of the leaf and the top of the leaf. The flowers are looked at. The whole plant is looked at to see if there are any signs of distress. Once we see any signs of distress, we're now discussing with our agronomist about what's the best way to deal with it. So scouting is a very important aspect of our day-to-day activities. Then there's weeding, which happens every day as well. As I explained, we always want to keep the greenhouse very clean. So we will weed and we will remove everything from the greenhouse. Another thing is we are trellising the plants, but what happens is that as the plants are growing, they may fall away from the string. So what we still need to do is check to see if there's any plant that has grown and is no longer tied, it's no longer well trellised, so that you can keep guiding the plant. If you are to leave it and not keep on guiding the plant, then still half the plant will be away from the trellising, and you will still affect your yields, and the plant can actually end up losing some of its fruit.
And do you do pruning?
Yes, pruning is also part of our daily activities, because if it is too dense, if the vegetation is too dense, then you affect the ability of light to get to the fruit. As you can see, the fruit is starting from the bottom.
Yes.
The fruit will not ripen without access to light. So we do prune so that we are balancing the fact that we need the leaves to produce the food, but we also need enough light to get through to the fruit. So we will be checking every day. You're checking to see which plants need pruning. And we should be able to walk freely through the paths.
Through the paths.
Because if you cannot walk freely through the paths, how will you even do your sprays? Because we do have weekly sprays, preventive sprays, and nutrient sprays that we put. And if it is too bushy, you're not even going to be able to spray properly and to cover the whole plant. So another daily activity is we keep records. We keep records of everything that is going on in the farm. In terms of results from scouting, in terms of how much water we've used to water the plants, in terms of any fertilizers or nutrients that we've put. That record needs to be as complete as possible. Anything that we see, we're recording. So record keeping is very important for the farmer, because it not only is it going to give a guideline to the agronomist when he comes so that he knows how to help you, but it is also good from a financial management perspective. A farmer must be clear what cost he has incurred, from fuel for the generator to pump water, any labor that he has brought onto the farm for harvesting, electricity, fertilizers, chemicals. He must be very clear so that he can see whether he's being profitable or not. Many farmers are very poor when it comes to that record keeping. And then they are not even in the formal banking system, which makes it very difficult for them even then to access help, to access loans, because there are no records of anything. There are no bankings. For us, whenever we have a harvest, we bank the money first before we withdraw it to use it for various activities. And we keep a record that we're now, we've sold 600 kgs and we've gotten this much money. We've deposited, now we've withdrawn so much for fertilizers and for salaries.
Okay.
So it is very important to keep good records and to be assessing the financial health of your business.
All right. So now let's move to the greenhouse. These plants, what's the ideal temperature that they will thrive in?
Okay. What I know about capsicum is that the temperatures must not be so hot or too cold. So even the way our greenhouse was constructed, it was constructed with that in mind. We have insect net on the sides. We also have plastic curtains so that we are able to give a more controlled environment. So at night, in the evening when it is now going cold, we put down the plastic curtains so that we retain the warmth from the day and the plants are not receiving a shock of suddenly experiencing cold temperatures. When the temperatures are too cold, the plant is not going to flower. So it is all about trying to maintain the temperatures within an optimum range that is comfortable for the plant. So we even have a vent at the top of the greenhouse, which is also helping with air circulation. Remember, the plants are needing carbon dioxide during the day, but at night they need oxygen. So it is important that there's ventilation coming through in the greenhouse. When there's poor ventilation in a greenhouse, for example, if someone is to keep the plastic covers closed, the plants are transpiring, they're releasing moisture. That moisture will cause humidity and it will cause water droplets on the plants, and that will make the plants more susceptible to diseases. So all those issues of controlling the temperatures, maintaining good ventilation is very important for the growth of the capsicum.
So the harvesting process, take us through it and explain to us how can someone just do the harvesting the right way.
The right way to harvest the capsicum is to remove the stalk together with the fruit. There's that short stalk that is connected to the branch. That must be removed. If you cut too closely to the fruit, you will make it more easily deteriorate. The shelf life will be shortened. So you will cut off with the stalk. If the buyer then wants to cut it further, it's up to him to do it, but don't cut it too fine. And the plant, the way the plant is growing, the fruit setting starts from the bottom. So we have fruit that is ripening from the bottom. We have some mature fruit that is still green. Then we have small fruits, and then we have flowers at the top. So you are not going to harvest any fruit that has not changed color, because it still wants to grow. It's still going to give you a better yield, a better weight. So you will only harvest the fruit from the bottom, and as the plant is growing over the next 9 months or so, you will then be harvesting at a higher level.
And what is your final parting shot?
Okay, I want to encourage farmers to grow yellow and red capsicum. I think it is a very profitable crop to grow. The thing is, we must always, as farmers, we must look at what is the profit you can get per square meter of land. So when you're choosing what to do with your land, yellow and red capsicum are a high value crop that will give you good returns even with a small piece of land. The other advice I want to give them is that you need to learn before you earn. You need to put in the hours to learn. You need to get the right support, and you yourself must become conversant with how you grow the plant. Although we have an agronomist who comes to us, I'm already understanding the crop myself, because it is important for the owners to also understand what is going on with their crop. They must be able to engage the agronomist and to ask him some questions, because he may not know everything. He may make mistakes. And if you're just going to take everything he says and not be able to discuss with him, you may be led astray. The other thing I want to say is that it is good to get the right technical help with a good agronomist. I've mentioned it before, and I want to repeat it, that many people feel like farming is the simplest thing in the world. Their grandmothers used to farm, their great-grandmothers used to farm, and apparently they would do very well. But now, modern farming techniques require you, if you want to be a commercial farmer, you need to get an agronomist who understands the crop and who has the experience and the required expertise to help you. So that is what I can say to help them.
All right, guys, we've come to the end of AgriTalk today. And you as a farmer, I hope you've learned something about growing capsicum. And we've been talking about the two varieties, the yellow one and the red one. I hope you've learned something today. My name is Kelvin Nyakundi. Let's meet next time. Same place, same time. KTN Farmers TV.